Yeah.
Hello, everybody. It's Michael Jacob with Unleashing Intuition Secrets, joined once again by Dr. John Scott Perez. We're going to talk about a lot today. We got UFO technology we're going to be talking about, how that works, and bioengineered diseases possibly being released soon, then ticks, sepsis, and of course, Allicin V, which is, can handle all this stuff, no problem. So, Scott, good to have you back again. It's always amazing when you come on because you reveal so much. Just in our conversation, just before this, you're revealing like crazy amounts of information. So look forward to this conversation.
Well, it's nice to talk to you guys and see you, and um, I'm sure you're happy to be where you are versus here in Hurricane Central, waiting for Arthur to form out in the Gulf. um, yeah, I'm glad that Tracy decided to call this little meeting and have this chat because of everything that happened with Kyle Busch this week, and it's crazy. And I wanted to share some of my own experience in my life, and basically the 51 years that brought me to Allicin V. This wasn't created for COVID. This wasn't the product of some COVID solution or magical cure. So I wanted people to know that, one, I wanted them to hear my story, okay, and talk about it and ask questions if you want. What happened to me way before this, what happened to me during COVID, and what I've learned, okay, because I'm just as human as everybody else, right? I make mistakes, use the same bathrooms and all that stuff. But I've learned some things, and I've taken some pain in doing this. Okay, it wasn't all easy. So just because you have degrees and you do things does not always mean that you know everything. So where I kind of want to go with this is, when I was very young, I had bad allergies, and I was 7 years old. I was playing soccer out in the field over here, New Orleans Baptist School. I was going to, and I went to header a soccer ball, and I got somebody's knee right in the nose. So I had a really bad nosebleed. I think I was knocked unconscious anyway. Came to, and I had blood everywhere. And after that, I had nosebleeds until I was about 16.
Dang.
And my allergies were really bad, and I would sneeze and have these nosebleeds, and all of a sudden, one thing led to another. And it is Memorial Day weekend, so that's when everything kind of started with me having all these sinus problems. And in the beginning of it, when I was about 13, I think, maybe, I was lying in my uncle, Paul Esperone. He has two Purple Hearts and a silver star. And he came up through Africa, through Sicily, up in to meet Patton's boys. I'm lying there in the truck, and I have a nosebleed, and he's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I go, "I have a nosebleed." And he rolls up a piece of paper towel, and he gives it to me, and I put it under my lip, and the nosebleed stopped. And within a few months, it healed. And I had already had my nose cauterized by doctors and all this technical stuff done, and none of it helped. I just kept having these nosebleeds. Anyway, it just goes to show you that sometimes the old remedies are the best. And for, I have a lot of military in my family, this, but for me, and my uncle was like my grandfather, because I didn't have grandparents on my father's side. My dad and his uncle, my dad and his two brothers lived with my uncle. But what I later learned was that when he was a little kid, growing up in the Great Depression. He was in school and he stuck a pencil. Oh, my props are falling. He stuck a pencil in his nose like some little kid would in kindergarten. And back in those days, the pencils were lead. Yeah. They were real lead. So the piece of lead broke off in his nose. And what would happen is it would get hot and cold, and his nose would bleed. And way back there in the Great Depression, they did this thing with a paper towel. Anyway, I never had nosebleeds again until I slid into second base head first in high school over in Frostproof and broke my nose nearly and deviated my septum. And that's a true story. So, sometimes what happens is we get too technical and we don't need to be. And anyway, that was the beginning of me being sick. So around that age of 13, my allergies were just, really bad. And I didn't have an explanation for them. My doctors didn't have an explanation. They were like, just take Sudafed. And way back then, these Sudafed pills are little red pills and like 10 milligrams of pseudoephedrine. And, just take them like candy to dry out your sinuses. Yeah. Well, that's a regulated substance now. And you can't even buy Sudafed because a number of people have died from it. But the problem with Sudafed was that people got wind of, I can take Sudafed and make crystal meth from it or methamphetamines and all this business. So now it's a banned substance. Huh. And that banned substance is in things like Contact and Claritin D and these other things where you have to sign, you have to show your ID and sign for them. Well, I had a lot of colds. I don't know if this was normal or not. I also had injured my ear in first grade over there in New Orleans Baptist School, horsing around in first grade and banged it up against a garbage can. And I had a lot of ear infections. I don't know if that was from swimming or Florida weather, the rain or what. And so I had these colds, and all through my life, I kept having these colds, and it affected me. So I'm very athletic. I played a lot of baseball with people that played in MLB. I played Division I SEC at Mercer. I chose to go there from Tampa Prep. I was drafted by the Pirates, and instead I chose to go to Mercer. Well, all through all of this, I had colds, and it affected my ability to be an athlete. It affected my ability to perform as a professional, or not a professional, but NCAA baseball player or in anything. Even when I was younger, it affected me a lot, strength-wise, energy-wise, and all of this business. So this went on through Mercer with really bad colds, and I went from there to Nebraska. It's extremely cold in Nebraska. You saw the snow there the other day. I saw you talking and saying, "Oh, look at the snow outside." Well, I've seen snowflakes fall in the afternoon in June 4th in Lincoln.
Wow.
The size of $50 quarters are, very large flakes. So, and it's cold. And if you're from Florida and your blood is thin and you go into cold weather like that, it's a shock. It takes time for your blood to thicken and for you to adapt. And it's not an overnight thing. So I had a lot of colds there. And in the lab that I worked in, I grew a lot of bacteria, a huge amount of bacteria. We were culturing bacteria. And the floor I was in, we had all kind of pathogens that we were using to do recombinant DNA work. That particular floor had equipment in it that is in Lincoln, one of the only facilities that has these autoclaves for the biologicals that they have at University of Nebraska Medical Center, where they're treating the hantavirus, and they've treated Ebola patients. I've been up there.
Wow.
So, it's not BSL level, which they have, but people would get sick. They would end up in the hospital and they couldn't identify what they had. That was back in the 90s. So I got some of that sickness, and this carried on, and it carried on till my daughter was born, and she turned about 3, and I was 36 years old. And she would bring home, her immune system was developing, but she would bring everything that the kids in the daycare had home on her. And she would give it to me. So around 2003, when she was at this Lutheran church over here in daycare, I got sick chronically, and I kept taking antibiotics. And the next thing you know, I started bleeding from my GI tract. Well, the first time I ate methylprednisone, and I had a bunch of x-rays and a barium sulfate workup, GI, and I had endoscopy and pathology. And there was, major concern that I might have colon cancer. I didn't, which is fortunate. But I had a lot of bone pain after this, and felt very arthritic at age 36. Then I had 2 more episodes in 2004 and 2006. And in 2006, my GI specialist was like, well, you might need to increase the amount of prednisone, without warning me of some of the side effects. So I wasn't having my blood tested or testing my blood sugar. So I was eating methylprednisone, and what methylprednisone does is it turns off your immune system to calm down an immune response in a generic umbrella way. This methylprednisone is also used in chemotherapeutic treatments, because the immune system involving cancer sometimes goes haywire. So what happened was the methylprednisone failed. It didn't work for me, and things got worse. Gesundheit.
Thank you.
So things got worse for me, and it failed. And so I was having a cytokine storm, and the cytokine storm was affiliated with my GI tract, and the sepsis that I developed started in my GI tract, where basically my food that was being processed was leaking through my gut into my blood, along with other pathogens. I developed thrush. Then, because the methylprednisone dose was high, it resulted in my pancreas and my liver shutting off. So I've talked about this in several interviews, and Jeff Rentz, and I think we've even talked about this before. Methylprednisone is also a corticosteroid. So I had a barrage of symptoms, everything from, breakout to my face swelling and all of these crazy things. And my wife thought I was going crazy. And, in fact, called the police on me.
Wow.
The police came here. I'm like, listen, I'm eating this methylprednisone. I'm going to go to the hospital and get checked out. Something's wrong. I don't know what's wrong. So I end up going to the hospital at 5 a.m. And when I get to the hospital, they're like, first thing they do is they check your vitals and they take your blood. And I tell them what's going on and, everything. And I'm sitting there and they come in and they're like, your blood sugar is 800. You're diabetic. And I'm like, whoa, this is a news flash to me.
Wow.
So they wanted to check me into the hospital. And I was adamant that I didn't really want to be checked in, didn't know completely what was going on. And they agreed not to check me in the hospital and allow me to go over to my primary physician's office, Dr. Rogal. So Dr. Rogal is a cardiologist. He teaches at USF now. He was a partner of Dr. Carthy. I went over, I talked to him, and he then called over to my GI specialist and said, hey, I have your patient here. He's got steroid-induced diabetes. And anyway, it was a very interesting conversation. And
I've never even heard of that, steroid-induced diabetes. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so methylprednisone, what happens is the biochemical pathways and the diabetes that's produced are an inflammatory condition between the liver and pancreas, where the pancreas becomes inflamed. And the inflammation can damage the beta cells and shut down your pancreas from making insulin. And so what happens is it's a steroid, it's a corticosteroid, but you become the equivalent of insulin resistant. And at the same time, the cytokine storms are going on, and you develop these other things like respiratory infections and, all these other things because your immune system is down.
Yeah, whacked you.
And this is the part of the emergency situation where you find yourself where, okay, I was very young, 36, and now I'm 38. This is happening to me. Okay. And I'm having pain as well, neuropathic pain, arthritis, all these crazy things in my head. I'm hearing voices, telepathic things related to people, and just very bizarre, all these crazy things. Okay. So Rogal gives me metformin glyburide, and metformin is a liver drug that shuts down the synthesis of glucose from lipids, fat. And glyburide is a molecule that sticks in the pores of the beta cells to allow insulin excretion to come out. So what did I look like then? There's a picture of me, and I have it here, and I can share it.
Yeah, I can share it. I got it right here too.
But wait a minute. I'm wearing the shirt.
The same shirt.
I went into the archives back in the time machine. Yeah, there I am. So there's my daughter. She's 6 years old. That is a picture 2 weeks later at a father-daughter event on Davis Island. That is my face. Okay, I'm 57 and a half now. That's my face. And if you bring it up, I don't look anything like that. Okay, at all. So I understand what it's like to go to the hospital, and I just want to make a couple comments here. One is, if you see a loved one in a condition like that, like, hey guys, do you mind finding me the doctor? I think I need a shot. Or you're not acting right and law enforcement's there and things don't look right. Call the emergency medical services or guide them into the car and say, hey, let's go to the hospital and get checked out. And don't wait, because I could have died from that easily, just as easily as anything else. Well, that experience dramatically changed my life. It changed everything about me. And so I bled for the greater part of 6 months.
Jesus.
Yeah. And I changed my diet and other things, of course. But one of the things that it led to was I felt that the antibiotics and the biome problems in my GI tract led to this. And I went on a journey. I started on that journey in 2006. I wanted to find a way to minimize my consumption of antibiotics. And so a lot of crazy ideas came out of that. I'm into mechanical things, and my background and in chemistry and all of that. I one of the things that came out was, boy, wouldn't it be nifty if I could put 2 platinum valves on the bottom of my lungs and wash my lungs? So it became very apparent to me that I could brush my teeth, I could wash my sinuses. This is just 80 proof ethanol, 40% ethanol with sugar in it. And so one of the tricks I created and started using then was I had a pump spray, and I chose Jack Daniels. And what would happen is I had all these sinus infections, and I would wash my sinuses on a regular basis, especially when I woke up in the morning and I was sick. It was in the morning and it would sting. And what I found out was the sugar, the glucose, was an immediate source for the mucous membranes to rebuild themselves quickly. And in a few days, that infection would go away and it would no longer sting really bad. At the same time, I would do things like, okay, there's this old wives' tale about isopropyl alcohol in your ear. Well, no, I just use the same thing. So that did not cure me. It slowed things down, is what it did. It slowed things down. So it didn't solve my problem. And I continued on having these colds. And what is weird was about that time, the whole SARS epidemic in Hong Kong and China and all of that started up. Well, things progressed. And as they progressed, I went back to eating Claritin D. And over the course from, it progressively got worse starting in 2010 for me with the SARS stuff. I ate a lot of Claritin D. That was my solution. It worked for me. It wasn't the best thing in the world. But what happened shortly after that was I got kidney stones from the Claritin D. So then I got introduced to a whole new level of pain. In fact, I was in the emergency room at St. Joseph's Hospital after 3 days of no sleep and constant pain, walking back and forth, pacing, and the police are in the emergency room, because they're there because a lot of crazy people come in there and all kind of things, and they're like, what's wrong with him? And the nurse was like, he has kidney stones. And I was like, sorry, I didn't mean to, but I'm just sitting there holding my kidney. And I was there to try to get a morphine shot because I was like, I'm going to be able to pass this. I know I'll be able to pass it. Wow. From drinking water and lemon juice and lemon popsicles. And I would take a shot of apple cider vinegar, take a shot of pure lemon juice, drink as much water, eat, those things do work in time. And they worked for me. And now I've discovered some new things like Bumi Amalaki, which is an Indian powder they call Chacapidra in Peru. It's called Stonebreaker. You can put it in your coffee and drink it with your coffee every day. It's really good for your kidneys too. It helps. But that wasn't a solution for me. And the pain was crazy. That particular visit that I mentioned there was a $15,000 visit.
Dang.
To St. Joseph's Hospital because I just was trying to get a morphine shot. They don't just give you a morphine shot. You don't just walk in the ER, okay, can I have some morphine? No, they took my blood and stuff. Then I had a PET scan and Siemens PET scan, which took a little time for me to get there. I get there. They come back. Takes a little time. oh, you've got 5 to 8 millimeter kidney stones in your left kidney. I was like, yes, I know this. Would you like me to check you in? No, I just wanted a morphine shot so I could sleep and pass these. So then he gave me the morphine shot. My wife drove me home. I went to sleep. I woke up at about 11 o'clock that night and passed the kidney stones. And I've captured some of these. And I've taken pictures of them. You capture them for your urologist or nephrologist, and you take them to them and they can analyze them. So that's what happened to me with cold medicine.
Jeez.
And it was all because, and believe me, I tried all these other solutions during this time, right? I had taken cold medication, NyQuil, Walletin D. I probably bought more Walletin D or Robitussin or all these, all these different products. I ate them all, and I ate a lot of them, and it wouldn't stop. And so I even had postnasal drip and tonsil stones that would form in my tonsils, and then they would get large, and they would break the little capillaries, and then because of the bacteria, I would get a throat infection. It would run down into my respiratory tract.
Yeah.
And so
you haven't had your tonsils taken out? Somebody was asking in the chat if you'd had
no, I didn't have my tonsils taken out. Well, so this kind of continues on from 2010 to 2009. And so 2019, my daughter that you see in that picture, she graduates from Academy of Holy Names here in Tampa, Florida, which Kylie McEnany went to. She graduates from there, and we go over to the beach at Indian Shores. So I think you remember the Serrata Beach Resort thing a couple years ago with a number of people, Dania Brinkley, Carrie Cassidy, and that whole group, Laura Eisenhower, several other people that were there. It was a great little thing before it got destroyed by hurricanes later that year. So they had a thing that Laura set up. I got to meet Laura Eisenhower. That was cool. Boy, she's really tall.
Yeah.
Also, Brad is tall too. So
Great.
very tall. So they had this thing called it was the Day of Being. They called it the Day of Being. It was at Indian Shores, and they spent the whole day at the beach there having fun before that whole Serrata Beach Resort thing. Well, I had a beach at one time. My family, we had a beach condo there, Indian Shores, and I helped a lady that had a beach condo at Sun Villas too, and with her website and all her stuff. And she was like, "Oh, you can come over and hang out for a week, just pay for the cleaning." And so I brought my daughter Nina out there for Beach Week after graduation, which is what all the seniors in high school here, it's a big deal when they graduate. They all go to the beach for a week, and they call that Beach Week. So we took Nina to the beach, and we're over there hanging out. Well, I'm in the water, and I get another ear infection, and I'm sick. I'm very sick. It was unenjoyable. Well,
and that was from the ear infection. You got sick?
I got sick in the water. I went in the water. I got an ear infection. I'm really sick. Oh, I mean, immediately sick. My ear's killing me. I mean, really hurting. I'm sick, and it's unenjoyable. We're there the whole week. Well, and I had vertigo. So
yeah,
what happened to me, as soon as I started getting the vertigo, I thought of two people. One is named Bobby Santos, who is a Florida native, a lawyer and a state of Florida ombudsman. And another one is Dr. Alejandro de Quesada, who is the father of one of my friends and his brother, and has since passed on. He's a brilliant Cuban, went to Havana Medical School, was one of the founders of Gatorade, and just somebody I respect a lot, who had vertigo and had cochlear implants. And Bobby can't drive a car now. He also had vertigo, and I believe these two things to have been caused by a virus. That was my understanding. So I was scared that I was going to end up like that. I was scared. Okay. So that whole month of June 2019, I ate antibiotics for a whole month. And I'm not talking regular antibiotics. I'm talking augmentin, strong antibiotics. So right on July 4th.
Said it had to be parasites in the water. So I know after living in that area for several years, I learned from the locals that knew that they have a real bad problem with their sewage, and it leaks quite a bit, and they don't tell anybody about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's exactly what it is. So now, okay, part of that story is it was in the national news. 2 miles down the road, there's a sewage plant.
Yep.
And they were leaching that sewage out into the water.
Mm-hmm.
And these pathogens would go into the bodies of tourists and the natives that were there, which is, I believe, what happened to me. Okay. But there is a moral to this story. So I had a bacterial and a viral infection is what I had.
Mm-hmm.
So I had antibiotics for a month, right? That should have worked in 2 weeks, but it wasn't working. Okay. So what happened to me was all the yellow phlegm and all of that was gone. Okay. Yellow phlegm. If you see yellow phlegm, yellow is what a culture looks like from bacteria. And if you've grown enough of it, you know what it smells like. We're talking pneumococcus or streptococcus or all of these bugs, MRSA and whatnot. You know what bacteria looks like and smells like, especially if you've grown 3,000 cultures like me.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, I was listening to a lot of Jeff Rense, and Jeff has a product called Allicin C. It's an Allicin product with vitamin C, and it's a powder, and you eat it. Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Peter Jostling, is a famous person affiliated with garlic. He's in the UK and affiliated with Allicin product, and he's been involved in clinical trials and other things. Well, I was like, I ought to look into this. So once I figured that what I would do, because the ear pain wouldn't stop, and it's getting to July 4th holiday, and now I was going to take my daughter. We had the passes to Disney water parks. We were going to go over. Excuse me. We're going to go over to Blizzard Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to eat dinner at the Grand Floridian, watch the fireworks.
Nice.
Do all that. So we go over there, and I'm like, I was desperate to find a solution. And this whole thing with Peter Jocelyn, and he's talking about the clinical trials and the colds and stuff. I'm like, well, I'm figured, okay, I'm going to go out to social media like we're talking now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go out to social media and see what people do to solve this ear problem. So I did. And after that, I came up with this product right here. See it?
Garlic oil.
Yep. Okay. What this product is, it's a white egret. It's a product that is sold at the vitamin shop. And it has 4 things in it. It has mainly olive oil, garlic oil, lobelia, and mullein. These 4 things, okay, are capable in your ear of going through the membranes where these viruses are extremely hard to treat. The good doctor will admit to you the truth. They have an extremely hard time of treating a virus in your ear with just giving you antibiotics or antivirals. It's extremely hard to reach it. In fact, some of these viruses go way back here, and people have to have surgery, and it can cause all of these problems, and the adenoids back here and all of this business. So I went ahead and got this, and I put it in my ear, and within an hour, the pain went away.
Wow.
Well, I had to keep treating myself because I did have the pain. But 3 days later, the pain was gone and the virus was gone. I didn't stop treating, but my wife was then, I'm up at the top of that slide, of the highest slide at Blizzard Beach, and I'm up there, and it's windy and it's going to storm, and I'm the last person to ride on the ride because they're going to shut it down. And Julie films me coming down the slide at 70 miles an hour. And there's a video of this somewhere, which I'll share with you if I ever find it, but it's in my archives. Anyway, this led me to then look at the research and the clinical trials, because the problem that Peter Josling discovered was they were these patients were eating a huge amount of Allicin C, and it was only 60% effective with the common cold. And they weren't able to get hit at 100. So I'm like, why is this a problem? So I started learning about Allicin being digested by the GI tract. It turns out the Allicin C product is coated in starch, and it turns out that your body very much loves Allicin. So what happens is it's breaking apart, but once it does get to the GI tract, it may have some interaction. They enterocoat these things, which is like a starch coating, so it makes it through the stomach, gets to the colon. But the problem is that the body really loves it when you take it orally, so it never makes it to the surface of your lungs ever.
Wow.
Right? So they had, in all of this research and development, they had trouble detecting Allicin in the blood of these patients eating all this Allicin. It wasn't in their blood.
Wow.
And so I'm looking at this problem, and I'm like, well, I've got to figure out a way, because things aren't working out for me, and I'm still getting sick. And, here I am, 2019 in July. So this is actually a bottle of formula number 3, the third formula I ever came up with. Because I was already using the ethanol formula to wash my sinuses, the first research usually the first things you do are the simple things.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing the Allicin reaction in an ethanol product. Okay. And the reason that I was doing it in the ethanol product is because Allicin is only 2% soluble in water. It's only 4% soluble in minced garlic. And so I was trying to figure out why. Okay, I had 2 choices. This is a DNA coded being. It's a plant.
Mm-hmm.
It's created by higher power. No human can create one of these from scratch. No human ever has. We just manipulate them and GMO them and make all the variants. Whomever created this did it millions of years ago. So the amount of money that it takes to rewrite these codes is ridiculous for a human. So I was looking at trying to figure out ways of fixing the allinase reaction. Allinase is the enzyme in this plant. This plant stores allene. Okay, it doesn't have any allicin in it at all right now. There's no allicin in this. It's allene. When you mince it, you release an enzyme that takes the allene and stitches it together and makes an allicin molecule. Okay, and And so it turns out that this plant makes about 4% soluble allicin because of the ingredients in the plant make it a little bit more soluble than allicin would be in pure water. So the first things I created were only 20% soluble allicin, but also it wasn't a stable suspension where the allicin could stay in solution for a long time. So this is the aerosol. It was called Aero AV. Okay. By late July, I already had it. And it was my belief that the Brownian motion in this allowed the allicin molecules to bang into themselves. And when they bang into themselves, they react with themselves and they produce yet another molecule called ajoine. It's Mexican in nature, but it is therapeutic. It's therapeutic. It's good for your cardiovascular system. And, it has good effects and some anti-cancer stuff in the literature and all that. But it doesn't kill coronaviruses. It doesn't stop the common cold. At that time, I believed that the majority of the things that I was after were bacterial infections. And so I was just now stepping into this SARS problem that I was having that I didn't fully understand completely. Okay. And I was working on improving this. And so I then evolved as things are going along. Now we're in September. Well, I live, like 4 miles north of CENTCOM. There's a huge amount of military in Tampa, Florida. There are a lot of alphabet things around here. And all of a sudden, I get sick. And other people around me get sick. So this is when the beginning of Aero V commerce begins. My mom was very sick. I believe I had SARS-CoV-2 COVID-19 that was brought back here into this little environment from Wuhan.
Right. They had the military games. Yep.
Yes. And I got sick and I got sicker. So now things are dragging into Thanksgiving. My mom is extremely sick. She doesn't come to Thanksgiving dinner. I'm getting sick. We're hearing all the rumblings of maybe something's going on in Wuhan and all of this business. And by December, I go over to my primary physician. Notice I'm not using certain names. I don't want to be defamatory towards people. We all make mistakes. This is a Harvard MD. So I go over to the guy, and of course, he orders me to take my blood work. My blood work is terrible because my diet has been pretty bad, and I thought I recovered from diabetes, and I really didn't. But I'm sick, and I have no sense of smell and taste, and I'm presenting with all the COVID-19 things. And he's giving me all this trouble with high blood pressure and all these other things, and he gives me an albuterol rescue inhaler. He's like, here. Okay. So I proceed to start huffing albuterol. I'm taking the Claritin D, and things are not getting better, and now we drift into January. And as things progress in January, we are all starting to learn of all this business with COVID-19 and everything else. Late in January, understand the sequence became available, and I didn't have access to it yet. I didn't know the ascension numbers. Well, Jeff Rentz is on the phone, is on his 11 o'clock at night Eastern time with Dr. Henry Nyman. Dr. Henry Nyman is a virologist from up in Harvard, MIT, and he's got his own little website, and he used to be a guest on Jeff Rentz, and he says, hey, the extension number is available, and we've got the sequence now. So it's pretty late. I see, oh, by the way, it's over on my website there, and so I go and pull the extension number, And the ascension number is a number, an ID of the sequencing of the genome of SARS-CoV-2 from the Wuhan fish market. First sequence, I pull it from GenBank. Okay, I pull it from GenBank. And then I'm like, well, a lot of people don't know what my background is. My background is my PhD in chemistry was in the area of biochemistry in the areas of molecular genetics and protein physical chemistry, and applying physical chemistry and quantum mechanics to biological systems and proteins and DNA, RNA, and all this business in cancer and aging with Nobel laureates that I got the opportunity to work with. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's got to be some sort of research because coronavirus was a well-known thing. We had SARS before. And I'm like, I'm going to go and look and see what research I can find. And if there are any drugs related to SARS that happened way back there in the early 2000s. And so the first thing I found was a 2009 paper on coronaviruses.
Wow.
Tied to SARS in the protein, where in North Carolina, what they did was they had these mice that were normal mice with the ACE2 receptor of a human integrated into it, and diseased mice with ACE2 receptor from a human integrated in it to do research. And they had taken SARS and they had infected these animals and they had killed them. Well, then what they did was they went in and made a code modification to the code of the coronavirus, and they took out one cysteine amino acid from the protein. You know, the trimer. This is my favorite little simple person model for explaining to somebody. It's camouflaged because it's glucose coated. It's got a furin receptor and it's a trimer. It's a spike protein. They had essentially broken it, is what they did. They broke it like this. And when it's broken like this, then what happens is it's exposed and antibodies can reach it. Well, they then took that mutant virus in the code and they infected mice that were normal and diseased. And none of them died. At all. They didn't die at all. And so the revelation, and I stayed up the whole night of February 1st. I stayed up the whole night. I was in shock because to me, playing baseball, that was like a high fastball, maybe a little inside that you turn on and hit out of the park. Because I knew right then, listening to all of that Peter Jostling stuff and reading all the Allicin chemistry I just read, that cysteine in the literature, in the article in Journal of Virology, was tied to a disulfide bridge that they broke that exposed the protein. So for me, I was like, wow, this is incredible, because I knew that there was a chance that Allicin was a candidate to do the same thing that they did in the gene knockout experiment, right? So this is a spike protein is a protein. It doesn't matter if it has a furin receptor or not. It's about 1,288 amino acids, and there's 3 of them. It's a trimer, and they're intertwined, and it's a spike. The reason it's a spike is it's rigid. And all of these viruses are spike rigid or outer membrane proteins because the disulfide bridges are like rebar and concrete. They give it tensile strength, and it's like a spike. Yes, that was the military games.
Okay. So SISM games and like the Navy SEALs, we used to win that every year for many years. I don't know who won it that year, but yeah, it was used to spread the COVID around the world. And
absolutely. And George reported on that. And a lot of people reported on that, like a big potluck, and everybody came together and ate. And I was like, oh my. I remember the potlucks and the international students at UNL when we all, brought the different foods and ate. So when that happened, okay, I was like, I've got to find a better way to stabilize the Allicin so that it can be working for a long period of time, because no one could figure that out. So I had research papers on Allicin and plates tied to pneumonia, tied to MRSA, tied to streptococcus, staphylococcus, and all these bacteria that plague hospitals. I had already been looking at that. Now I'm shifting gears and I'm looking heavy in the SARS-CoV-2 and MERS. But what that paper told me was very important. That paper told me that it didn't matter whether it was a cat, a dog, a cow, a Middle Eastern person with MERS, or a person with SARS from China, because those things are in a family, which means that family picture from Easter, where everybody, all the daughters and sons, they all look like a mother and father and the big families. The viruses are all the same. It's a code. Mm-hmm. They all look alike. So the beauty of this is when you break open a feline or canine or even a bovine coronavirus that might be in your lungs, it's not infecting you. When you break it open, your body produces the antibody to that open target. Okay, that open target is called an epitope in scientific terms. But guess what happened in the Wuhan variant? It doesn't even matter if you make this from a laboratory and you attenuate it and you put a furin receptor on it. It doesn't matter. Now you put that in a vaccine. It doesn't matter, because what happens is when this comes off the ribosome and is made inside of your cell, it's the same structure. And so what happens is, now if you've got Allicin nearby this business of this before it infects you, before on your lungs, then you break this open, now your immune system is exposed. And your body learns the immune subsystem, the innate and adaptive immune subsystems learn these things. So the adaptive immune system is the one that makes the antibodies. And if you have this in your library, then you can fight this. And the more times that you fought it, your body remembers, and it's learned, because your body is a machine and it's coded in DNA, and it's a DNA machine, and it has a DNA operating system, 23 chromosomes from your mother, 23 from your father. Your identity is based on the junk DNA, and your autoimmune system that protects you is that junk DNA, which is your identity. And this doesn't match your identity. So that's what invokes an immune response. This target that happened to be in the feline and canine was also in the Wuhan lab. And that's how this works. So once I pieced that together, I was like, I must solve the physics problem. At that point, it was nothing but a physics problem. I was like so excited. It's like, 2, 3 in the morning. I'm running calculus calculations. A lot of people don't understand that a spike protein from COVID-19 is fragile like an egg. It's really fragile. It's not like an influenza spike protein that's hemagglutinin. That's not fragile. So this is very fragile. It's like Humpty Dumpty. When you bust this sucker, breaks into a million pieces, and all the king's men and all the can't put it back together again. So I see that. Now I'm still looking at the research. It's kind of late at night. So the next one that comes up is a 2008 paper, and it's on the envelope protein. And the envelope protein, it's the same kind of paper. The envelope protein is, you see this round capsid? You got all these spikes. The envelope proteins are the glue that makes this round sphere in my hand that holds all the spikes. And it's this little teeny tiny 40 amino acid protein that's just nothing but glue that makes a sphere. And inside this sphere is the code, and this is a nano machine. It's not alive, but it's a nano machine, and it's a coded machine. So the morphology of this, like us, is coded, and it has an engineered purpose, and this is its structure. When that code is translated, this is the structure. Inside, this is the code. So it's like a piñata. You know, if you've ever gone to these birthday parties with these kids breaking piñatas open and there's candy, when this piñata ruptures, if it binds to your ACE receptor and releases into the cell, the RNA, then that RNA is not exposed to the environment. But if you break this open on the surface of your sinuses or your hands or your lungs, once you break that open and the single-stranded RNA pops out, now, if you understand how fragile single-stranded RNA is, I've seen grown adults, male and females, cry about their RNA being digested in their lab experiments. And these are clean room level people wearing all kind of, not hazmat, but damn close.
Yeah.
To keep contamination from going into RNA stuff, and it's all autoclave by the same autoclaves that have a UNMC and the BSL labs, which they brag about. But we've got them on the 6th floor of Lincoln, right? So the beauty of this is pre-infection, you're not infected. If you can engage this protein on the surface of the lungs or the sinuses, and this sucker ruptures open and that 2 copies of the single-stranded RNA bust out, now this empty virus, if it binds ACE2 and infects you, it's not carrying the code. It's worthless. It's totally worthless. It'll be cleaned up. But in terms of toxicity, okay, when you talk about things, benzene, benzoate, pyrene, graphene, arsenic, lead, all these things, those toxins are concentration based. They have an LD50, which is lethal dose that it's 50% toxic that will kill you. So this is a nanomachine whereby only one of these needs to infect you.
God.
And now it can replicate to 2 becomes 4 becomes 8. It's exponential.
Fibonacci after that, yeah.
And if you what it does is that code, just like a virus on your computer, it comes into your cell where your DNA operating system is. It hijacks it in terms of reverse transcription, and it's making its components on your operating system, and then it's making a lot of them, and then that cell will burst open and you'll have maybe thousands, maybe millions, thousands will be produced until that cell, it swells up and then it bursts. And then they're released, and then each one goes and affects another cell and it cascades. Or that cell is making some of these spikes because this is a lipid membrane, okay? The outer membranes of this and the outer membranes of your cells are fats. And so these little spikes, they are outer membrane, okay? They go to outer membrane. And so when you look at these pictures, let me show you something. I'll just share this real quickly. Oh, am I allowed to share screen?
Yep.
Okay. Let me open this. Yeah. Okay. Now, we'll welcome our latest member, the hantavirus. Look at all of these things, and it should be apparent to you when you look at all these viruses, they have these little spike proteins in them. Well, that's the same engineering. They all look alike. And it turns out also Ebola and Borrelia burgdorferi with the spirochete, anthrax. Down here, you've got the stuff that we had in the fog that grows in your ice maker dispenser, staphylococcus right here, streptococcus, right? Oh, this was the Seriata marcescens. All of these things, HIV, everything. You once you see these things, okay, they are common architecture, and this is an engineering thing, right? Let me just close out real quick. It's an engineering thing. Is stop presenting?
Yep.
Okay. It's an engineering thing. So if you imagine, just to give you an idea what single point of failure is, you're at a sports event at a football game, and there's 1,000 cars out in the parking lot. You got Porsches and Fords and, my golf cart. and then you got some older cars. They all have tires. And if you blow those tires out, they're not going anywhere. That's what these little spikes are. Once you learn how to blow these spikes out, they're not going anywhere. And if you blow the code out, it doesn't matter anymore. So I was after this with the Allicin, and I felt comfortable in going after it because I was getting sicker. Okay. I was very asthmatic during this period. I mean, extremely asthmatic, could not breathe. I'm huffing more albuterol. Nothing is working. I've eaten antibiotics. I'm now have, problems in my sinuses and, just on and on. It's getting worse. I've got all kind of congestion. I've got pneumonia basically, and things are getting worse, and we're watching the news and it's continuing to progress. So I start looking in the literature because I knew I wasn't going to have time to do DNA recombinant tried and true work, and I didn't have the machines and access, and I knew things were going to be crazy. So I was looking for a reaction way to bring the reaction to as high a yield as I could to meet the molecules paper for the bacteria, for the MRSA and the other things. And I'm looking through, and I call Dr. Hargrove up. So my mentor, one of my undergraduate mentors, is Captain Level 6, Full Bird, Ollie North Level, Dr. Hargrove, advisor to George Bush Sr. in the Gulf War. He's an expert in organic chemistry and chemical weapons. He's taught me toxicology, and I'm like, Dr. Hargrove is a very high ACS member. He's got more CRC handbooks than anybody I know. He has online access to this stuff. And I figure if anybody knew, he could find me some solubility data on Allicin as a molecule beyond ethanol. And he couldn't find it. I couldn't find it. He couldn't find it. I'm like, whoa, this is weird. This is really weird. So we then had a conversation about theoretical physical chemistry, physics, and organic chemistry relative to what might work. And my proposal to him, I bounced it off of him. And we had no idea what the results would be or anything like that. So I proceeded to talk to I talked to ATF and the FDA, because here I am with ethanol product. I'm like, what are the rules? And I learned some things from the FDA. I learned about FDA food processing ingredients that are listed on the FDA website, that are generally accepted as safe, that are tried and true food reagents that have been there, some, not all, that have been there for over 100 years, that don't cause any safety issues and whatnot. A lot of these come from other plants. Okay. The one that I chose is most predominant in corn, and the second one is in all vegetables. So what I did was I figured out the conditions of doing that reaction and making the 100% yield, and then purifying it and creating a suspension that holds the allicin molecules in animated suspension. So they're not moving around in solution, degrading themselves, but also this mixture is thermodynamically stable, which means I can put it in my pocket at room temperature. It lasts a long time. If I have it in my refrigerator, it's probably going to last 25 years, because in practical terms, the only things that were ever out there, everybody knew, if I mince garlic, the allicin is gone in an hour. And if I ate the allicin, it was never going to make it to my lungs, because what I was after was my lungs. So first I had the aerosol, and I was like, there's a physics problem here with coating the lungs. So I used to work for AudioVox. We made all kind of coatings for vehicles. I've done a lot of painting, spray painting, my house, Graco airless spray painter. I've got pneumatic spray guns. And the first thing that came to my head and my idea was to monocoat the lungs. I was going to need something finer than a misting aerosol. I was going to need more like what is called a van der Waals gas. It's a gas. Okay. So before I go into this, I'm just going to make a comment. Let me grab this right here. This is that product, and it was the 6th formula, and this is a shelf test that's been going since November 9th, 2020. This product is still functional. Wow. And the yellow color is an oxidation state of the allicin. Okay. So what happens is when you heat this, it'll get darker, and that is a reflection of the allicin changing to ajoine and other molecules. This is what happens when you mince garlic and put it in the frying pan. It gets dark. It's all has to do with sulfur oxidation state, which has to do with the actual furin receptor, and the conformation as it comes in and binds ACE2 undergoes changes with ACE2 as it brings the code into the cell of the lung tissue. Okay. So I'm after coating the lungs because I don't want this infecting me, and I have an infection and I know right where it is. At the same time, I've gone to the primary doctor. My CBC wood diff indicates that my white blood cell count for eosinophiles is off the charts. It's been off the charts, trending. It's been trending off the charts, but now it's sky high.
Wow.
And so we're kind of going forward. And I formulate, I'm like, okay, what can I do to figure this out and use something that's I'm on the phone with the FDA and all this business. And I'm like, hey, how come y'all don't regulate CBD? And they go, well, CBD is food. And then we're talking about the processed food ingredients and this stuff. And I had inhaled CBD. Well, I knew about all this hardware, and that patent right there I own is tied to cannabinoid toxicity. And I knew about the whole industry and what was going on there and changes that are going on in this country. So this technology, this is a 510 threaded vape cart. This is just a lithium battery. Oh, this is very simple technology. All this is a battery with a resistor in it, and it heats up. And in this solution right here is the suspension. The beauty about this is I can keep this in my pocket. Okay. And allicin is 100 angstroms in size. It's extremely small. Okay. So to give you an idea, an N95 mask is 2 microns, right? angstrom is 10 to the minus 10, so this is really small. I can come out of Walmart and inhale this, and all that air that I breathed in Walmart from all these other people that might have been in there that might have been contaminated with whatever they had, COVID-19 or whatever, I immediately destroy it if I put the Allicin on.
Wow.
All right. So I've got the formula now, and I needed more clinical data to go from there. So I got how I collected the clinical data. So things progress. I'm making this. I immediately go March 23rd, 2020 in the United States Patent Office. I file a provisional patent. I've learned a lot from all of this experience. The very next day, March 24th, 2020, I write a professional article in LinkedIn with exactly citing the provisional patent and citing all the technology in the provisional patent, which is a blessing. Also, back there in 2019, I committed commerce with the Aero AV product that became Allicin V. I committed commerce. So what I've learned is a couple things here, just to throw out on the table for inventors and people who want to understand this. When you are an American and you're an inventor, there's an American Inventors Act, and then you commit commerce 1 year before anybody files a patent or publishes a paper or anything, you are automatically the inventor and you're protected as inventor and cannot be sued. That doesn't mean you're issued a patent. When you file a provisional patent, you are now subject to government forms, due process under the Constitution, Fifth Amendment,
Wow,
clerical errors, and corruption. Okay. Corruption is when it's the dog ate my homework story. Somebody above was watching and helping guide me through, because the next day I wrote that article, and that is on the spike and envelope proteins. Okay. So a big problem has erupted in the United States Patent Office involving my invention, involving foreign entity that published a paper in September about the protease inside this, and all of this business about who was first and all of this. Okay. So I have filed under oath related to this. All the things we're discussing and a lot more, including a lot of people that I've cured that have given real testimonials, that have had the experience, that have medical records themselves. I filed a bunch of medical records. Okay. So I invent the Allicin V. Well, I'm now in July 15th, and I'm still having really bad asthma, and things are getting a lot worse. And I'm concerned, and I'm meeting with my doctor. And so right before that, I call my cousin who lives over in Valrico, and I ask her, I say, you have a lot of asthma and everything. And, my grandmother, who's her mother's sister, died at age 39 of asthma during a mock bombing raid in World War II when the lights were out. She couldn't find her rescue inhaler, couldn't find it. She died. Okay. Oh. 39 years old. Okay. So I say, well, you've got these problems, and we're genetically related in the branch. What are you taking? Well, she tells me I'm taking Brio, Ellipta, and Ventolin, and these other really hard drugs. And she's also a type 2 diabetic, but she didn't get the damage from the methylprednisone like me. And she didn't have the GI problems like me. But so we compare notes. I go to my Harvard MD and I'm like, hey, I'd like to try Brio because my cousin over here has, and I saw her blood work and she's got similar eosinophil problems, and I want to try it because this albuterol isn't working. I'm going to have a heart attack, which is what albuterol will give you when you start huffing it every hour, which is where I was.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now you can see the kind of things of distress of when you feel like you need a shot, okay, or you can see how these things develop, and I can see in hindsight how they developed, and I wasn't proactive enough given my background at an early age when I could have stopped this in my 30s, and now I'm drifted in my 50s. So I get on the Briolipta, I get in a big fight with my primary doctor, and all of these things result in me going to the state of Florida and filing a complaint where my medical records weren't being handed over to my allergy specialist named Dr. Jack Perino. He's an allergy specialist. Okay. I show up there. I tell him what's going on. I fill out all the paperwork like you do when you go in. I have a scratch test, shows my allergies. I go and I had to redo some of the blood work because of chain of custody tied to insurance payments. So again, I had to go do the eosinophil test again. And then I did the IgE antibody. So in my case, the IgE antibody is tied to eosinophils and food allergies and these type of things. So I do the IgE antibody at high activity. Well, once you do that test, you then fill out a form of all these foods that you're eating right now. And you go, and for every 10 foods, you got to give 1 vial of blood. So I gave 7 vials of blood and did 66 tests. It is the more you do, the more expensive it is. It was $2,000. Thank God insurance paid for it. I got good insurance. And not everybody has that. I understand. I went to Quest Labs, third party for all this, unbiased blind. So they test me now through the diabetes. Okay. And I'm going to give some cheat codes to people and freebies so you might understand this. Maybe you don't. Where I was at this point in life with the diabetes because of what happened to me, I'm eating the same food every day. And the reason that you eat the same food every day is because the blood assay doesn't care what you've eaten. And the doctor doesn't tell you that the blood assay doesn't care what you've eaten. And if you eat the same thing every day, you have control in the variance of the blood test and accuracy of it relative to what you're putting in your mouth. He doesn't tell you. That is the problem with some of these medical doctors, but that is the truth, okay? And I'm a person that creates these assays for the doctors. The doctor writes a prescription, and that's how I know how they work. I'm eating the same thing every day to control what my disease is that happened from the methylprednisone. So then I get the antibody results back, and wait a minute, I'm allergic to garlic. I'm allergic to broccoli. I'm allergic to carrots. I'm allergic to cauliflower. Okay. I was allergic to pumpkin. And by the way, Thanksgiving 2020, I ate a piece of pumpkin pie and my whole face swelled up. It was pretty bad. But my point is I'm not eating junk food or meat or all these other things. I wasn't allergic to salmon. So I had to change what I was eating. I ate 1 slice of salmon every day. I couldn't eat any of the vegetables as a diabetic. It's very bad. But I could eat salmon. So I wasn't reacting to salmon. So I ate salmon every day. But we knew it was the cytokine storm that I had that was about to lead to the sepsis problem that I had before in 2006. Because sepsis is when you're extreme, where you're about to pass out. Okay. I was really sick. I was knocking on that door. So that could happen any time. I was there. The cytokine storm was my body making these antibodies that it was failing is what it was doing. It was trying to make antibodies to the SARS-CoV-2. It was trying, but they're sugar coated and it couldn't do it. And my immune system wasn't really good. So it was making lots of them and they were hitting my lungs and they were doing damage and it was causing me asthmatic condition. Okay. This is a cytokine storm and it's very measurable. Now, my DNA and what happened to me and how my body reacted was one way. Other people have different reactions related to the different white blood cells in that CBC test. And there's 5 different types and different antibodies and different responses. And this is what confused doctors. It confused them because they got thrown a curveball. Okay. When you're looking for a high fastball coming in at 98 miles an hour and you get an 83 mile an hour curveball, it breaks 4 feet, you know, you might not be able to hit it. So that's what happened to these medical doctors. And the tests that they had and the tools in their drawer, I see now weren't very good. Later on, the SARS-CoV-2 antibody test came and they got better specificity and Quest Labs developed that. Okay. Now, you've had Dr. Shin on here with me. We've been on here with Dr. Shin, my colleague that invented the multifunction cardiogram AI technology for the cardiovascular system. Not everybody has somebody like that to talk to about this at any hour of the day, which I don't even think Dr. Shin sleeps. So he's just always at it, but he's very passionate what he does.
Yeah.
So I had myocarditis in my heart, learned that. I had already benchmarks and baseline because I knew where I stood relative to diabetes. I was at the point, my global score had moved from a 3 to a 5. And when you're at a 5 or above, if you're in distress, they admit you to the hospital. We did a clinical trial over at Orlando Regional Medical Center. And I was there. Okay. And I was very concerned. I had these antibody problems. I presented with all the SARS-CoV-2 stuff and things weren't getting better until I got to the Brio. So once I got on the Brio, I also took Monleucast, okay, which is a very dangerous drug. Monleucast is a drug that children and adults have committed suicide from taking it. And it's weird. Eating this drug is extremely weird. It causes strange depression feelings. Okay. And Xyzal. All right. And then I'm taking the Allicin V and I'm increasing the amount of Allicin V and we're tracking my blood. And so literally my eosinophiles are off the chart, came down and dropped down. And by December, and I had long COVID, it took until December 2021 to fully clear. It was that bad. At that time, all my sense of smell and taste came back. All my antibody responses to all my vegetables and food left and disappeared. My myocarditis from my MCG score, I had all these tests on the same day, so they were in sync, left. Okay. And then I had a SARS-CoV-2 antibody test that was available and it was cleared. So those things all left. And my point is that you should always talk to your physician about what's available in diagnostic tests. We list these in our website, and it doesn't matter if it's Quest Labs or anything else. The key thing, because of my background in PCR with David Gelfand, who found Taq polymerase for Carrie Mullis, the body, the measure that you look for in an average person or even a sick person is you look for the immune system. Is it responding to something? Is it responding to something that is encroaching on you? And so I think a lot of the PCR tests and a lot of the other tests were defective. And I've used PCR and cloning. And the problem is you get a dirty sample and you amplify everything. A swab to your nose is a dirty sample for a PCR expert that does recombinant DNA work. We have enough trouble with PCR and designing the primers and the physics of that, and it's like people who also, you see all these people that they, swab fruit and cats and all these other things and tested positive for COVID-19. So that is not an identity mechanism. It is an amplification mechanism. Okay. You still have to go through identity of that afterwards. And I think it was circumstantial, misappropriated biotechnology that may have had alternative motives like money.
Yeah.
And
well, it definitely did. You're very nice. So, but it started with the from the beginning. It started to make money. They biolabbed it and then released it, and then they started watching the population, and then they just blew it up from there.
Yeah, but guess what else? When I swab your nose and I take that sample from your nose, you've now given it to me and signed off the paperwork and conceded to that. I can now take your DNA with a reaction that I invented in graduate school in 1993, replicate all your chromosomes and put them in a database.
Yep.
And I can find out who you're related to and whether there's a cold case with some DNA over here. Okay. But also the bad news is that, and the people that make all these machines, including for CIA, NSA, CISA, all these groups, including the research groups, admitted to me they can't. I could take the DNA from a federal judge and put it at a crime scene, and they can't tell the difference. It's circumstantial. They need other things like, so and so saw you. Your cell phone had you in the area of it within 3 meters, and the video camera was over here, and maybe we had a satellite picture of you. They need more evidence. It's not that easy. Or you talked in your sleep or something. That kind of stuff. So they collected a lot of, who knows what they did with that information.
Mm-hmm.
And what was their motive with that information? Were they looking for aliens? I don't know. Or were they looking for, ways to improve bioweapons? What was
probably all the above. It's they're with the hantavirus ship, and they sent a bunch of people to Nebraska, so they're doing all the samples on them. So some people got sick, some people died, some people didn't get sick. So the people that didn't get sick, what's going on with them? So they're finding that out right now, and they're looking at, there's, I guess, 1 or 2 people there that are sick. So they're looking at them. They're getting all the DNA, RNA, and whatever they need to, make this a lot more potent.
Absolutely. And once you see that in 2004, there was a Hong Kong patient that had complications from SARS, that had HIV, that had this bad pneumonia, that had this furin receptor that somehow made it onto SARS-CoV-2, that made it in every vaccine through the patents, and you've seen the protein sequences are impossible to move from there, you ask yourself, whoa, who did that? And it wasn't some bat in a cave. So my background, I get it. I worked in black projects, different one than you. I understand that these things happen, the affiliation with the reality of technology and what corporate America and what has occurred, and maybe what is beyond human knowledge that might have been shared in these things in these underground programs. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know it sounds out there, but we've got too much evidence and too many people have come forward, and we've got too many strange things going on. So the moral of the story with me is I create this technology. All right. So now I've done a little bit of work. I've sold some product. I've got people giving testimonials. I had the fortunate opportunity of sitting down April 14th, 2022, with Dr. Joseph Latipo, Surgeon General of the state of Florida, with Dr. Kenneth Shepke, Deputy Director, Florida Department of Health, Cassandra Paisley, the lawyer, there's always a lawyer present, and Dr. Mark Abdoni, a friend of mine and a periodontist. And they had my medical records. And they also had in that file my MCG records, all my blood work that they had subpoenaed, and a copy of the patent, because my Dr. Perino knew that I was taking this and he knew that I was using it. And
So you went from close, almost right at death's door, and you started using Allicin V. You were vaping it. So eating it, you're only going to get 4%, is like you were talking about. Sometimes you're not even going to see it in the bloodstream. So it's not going to the lungs. But if you vape it, you get 100% of that Allicin into your system, and you're coating your lungs so that if any of this other bullshit that they're formulating out there for us comes near you, it's going to, like you talk about, it's going to blow up in that cell, and that RNA is just going to get destroyed right away.
Yes. So one of it is you want to sanitize your lungs. That was a problem that I learned in 2006. I was trying to sanitize my lungs. In other words, these pathogens can sit on your lungs and they're not infecting you yet until that time when they do move and they bind the receptor. They could just be there. They could be just sitting there like a piece of dust. But I wanted to build immunity to these other viruses so that I would have immunity to the BSL. And then the vapor thing, okay, I will demonstrate the product for you. Part of this was, you see, this will get darker. It will get darker and the oxidation state will change. See how dark that is? That's used product. You don't want to inhale this. So it
starts out nice and yellowish like this.
Yes.
Beautiful. And after you're using it for a little period of time, it's going to start to get dark. And when it gets dark, you just replace it. You just take that little thing off and you pour the liquid in. You clean it out. You pour the liquid in, and then you can use it again.
Exactly. You throw it out.
This is the one you gave Tracy, and I have another one downstairs that I use. But there's the charging. This just twist off. You empty it when it gets dark, and you put the Allicin V. This stuff lasts forever, right? So it's amazing. But I use it every day, and I'm coating my lungs. I'm protecting myself, and there's like you're saying, all these different pathogens out there. Some of them are pretty bad, right? The ones that are out there right now, hantavirus and the new hantavirus, the Andes hantavirus, and the Ebola. They have a new Ebola, which is in Congo, and it's devastating the people there. So they're gathering information on that one too. So you got to be ready, guys, because they have a system. So they did it to us last time. No one went to jail, or that we know of yet, and they're coming back at us again, and they're coming back at us a lot more, because I would say we probably had 1% of the population die from COVID-19 and the follow-on vaccination, which was even deadlier, I believe. And now we're going to see a 32%. Wow, that's going to get some attention. So we have to be aware. I'm not trying to put fear out there. Maybe it's just a fear on their part for us, or maybe it's the real deal. But we have to be heads up on this.
Yeah, so I'll demonstrate it, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about this Congo and the other things, because
good.
So part of this was,
and when you do that, I'm gonna bring up George Webb's little piece and let him talk. So what John's doing right now, John Scott's doing, he's basically deeply inhaling, so you fill the lungs up with the Allicin V vape, the vape, the smoke, and then he holds his nose and he pushes it up into a sinus.
And you inflate your sinuses, and what it is with these coronaviruses, they go deep, and these viruses go deep into your olfactory back here. They will go back there and coat that, and it will it will cancel that. And then you can use Vancinace and other aerosols. It'll dilate your sinuses and open them. The point is that Allicin, at ADC, Allicin will react with itself. So this is vapor. So oxygen is vapor. You breathe 20% in of oxygen from air with each breath. This is vapor, okay? So it's not carcinogenic like smoke. It's just a real gas. It's called a Van der Waals gas.
Mm-hmm.
The blessing of what I'm suspending it in is volatile enough to carry the Allicin at a lower temperature, so it doesn't react with itself. So you can drop it on the lungs safely. These are food ingredients, so it's all food. So the food has been tested, right? And it's not, you're inhaling it whether you like it or not. If you work in the food industry or you work in a kitchen or you cook your own food, you inhaled it. You're not going to have any lethal problems from it. 3 to 4 times a day is shielding. Okay. If you're somebody like me that was having all these cold problems, you need to be doing this. And my point with Kyle Busch was, if he was using this technology, okay, he might have been able to shield himself from the sinus infection, or it would have been a mild thing and it would have been gone and he'd be here with us still. And I lived through this kind of stuff. I just explained to you what my experience was, and I don't wish it on anybody. And through this period, by the way, you know, people lose faith and get depressed. This is a book called Healing and Wholeness. Okay. And this book was senior year at Mercer. It had nothing to do with any of this except for it's a book about 8 people that had terminal illness that lived and survived, and what their mental state was as they went through this. And people that were good people that did the medical procedures and they believed in God, atheists, all of it right here. And the point is that things happen to good people. Bad things happen to good people. So my point with Kyle Busch, when I saw this, I was like, man, I wish I could have gotten in front of him. Yeah. But look, my friend, so Dr. De Quesada, my friend, Carlos De Quesada, races cars. He raced a Daytona prototype and Rolex 24 with Brian Johnson. I've had some exposure to NASCAR. I've been down in the Rolex 24 pit at 4 a.m. in the morning where NASCAR is working the pits. I also got to work in the pit at Road Atlanta once. I've seen some of that. And I've seen, thanks to my friend who has been able to do these races and has won in the podium, he's actually won the Rolex 24. I've seen that sport. And it's made me have a greater appreciation for machines and race cars and things like that. And it's probably calmed me down from doing stupid things in the interstate over here when you see how fast those vehicles are. That, you know, I see this happen. It's a tragedy. Okay. It's a tragedy. He's 41 years old. You saw what I look like when I was 38. Okay. I look horrible. And so the message, the real message, and why I wanted to come on here and talk with you was because we don't live in the same world that we used to live in, where it was take 2 aspirins and call me in the morning. We've got biological pathogens that came out of various labs. They've been identified. Tulsi's reported on them, over 121 biolabs. We know that there are biolabs in the Ukraine. We know that Georgia's report on a lot of this stuff related to what is going on in the Ukraine, what is going on in China, what is going on in Rasmus lab, what is going on, you know, going way back in history. And he's actually gone boots on the ground. He's traveled to a lot of these places and met with the people and talked to them. Mm-hmm. Okay. He's done that. You wanted to play something from him?
Yeah, this is he's got a Substack, and you have to pay for it, so I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'll play a piece of it.
Go ahead.
So he's basically he's pointed out that this is coming. They're planning it again. Not necessarily coming. He can't say definitively. None of us can. I was looking at the last go around, and I was saying, "Looks like it's coming, guys. Looks like it's coming," and of course it did. So I'm saying the same thing about this. Looks like it's coming. All right. So we have to be heads up.
That's fine. I'm not a sponsor. Candace is a sponsor. That's one of their sponsors of their show. I'm more for people that I've met, spent a lot of time with, weeks and weeks, that I've met with numerous times with numerous people over years. And I know this doctor knows the best of the homeopathic as well as the best of Western medicine. So that's Carmadoc is the go-to. I know she have done ivermectin, not so much on hydroxychloroquine, I don't think. But we also have other people at the Nobel Prize centers at the quarantine who studied at the quarantine center of Cedar Bavaria in Nebraska, who studied with the top scientists, Nathanson and Tom Check and all those that got all the Nobel Prizes for this in Nebraska. So that's another consultant, and they recommend a natural product or the natural ingredient from garlic. Again, I don't make any money on this. Garlic, I just, those spicy foods just seem to be good for your health to keep you from getting sick. Just from my gut level, experience, but you make your own choice. Allicin's the active ingredient. By vaping it, you get the what Scott Perez says is you get the full 100% effect rather than 4% through the digestive tract. So, that was Poland.
All right, yeah. So
that's true. So Sina Bavari is not a University of Nebraska Medical Center anymore. He was there one time. I didn't work with him. I've been to University of Nebraska Medical Center. I met Daniel Nathans there. He's a Nobel Prize winner. Tom Check is in UC Colorado Boulder. My prime investigator, PI, came out of postdoc out of his lab. I worked with Elizabeth Blackburn, Carol Greider, and also Jack Sostak. I didn't work closely with him, but Carol, I got probes from, and they got the 2009 Nobel Prize in physiology and medicine for discovery telomerase, which is the universal target for cancer. Now, Carmadoc, she's in Austin, Texas. She is a former MASH medical doctor that was in Kosovo during Kosovo. She's very in touch with homeopathic stuff and just a unique person. So during COVID-19, she had Allicin V and she was giving it to cancer patients to protect them from COVID, and they went in remission. And I am hoping this last winter, her entire staff evaluated using Allicin V during their treatment of patients while we had this crazy flu and everything, and no one blindly, without any of my, other than, they sourced the Allicin V from me, used the product, and nobody got sick in their hospital for the first time in history. And she's going to write it up, I hope, sooner than later.
That's good.
But
so
we're learning more
questions in the chat. They always come about now the brand that you gave me. There's lots of brands out there, so we're not promoting a particular brand, but this pronounced Ooze, OOZE. This is the one I have up right here. Vape tanks. This is where your Allicin V is going to go in. So you don't get a vape with your Allicin V. You have to purchase that separately, and it's up to you what one you use. Go ahead.
So the Allicin V product, this originated with ear infection. So look, there's more applications than just vapor.
Yeah,
you can drop the product in your ear. You can use it topically on your skin. I also created another product called Allicin M that's similar to it. It's different. This will destroy MRSA and flesh-eating bacteria.
Wow.
On your skin. It's not for vaping, but it'll destroy toothaches and other kind of things. Like this will destroy skin cancer.
Yep.
It just, the point is that it's more than just vapor technology. The reason I can't sell vapor technology is because this is a okay, now you're getting into the FDA and federally regulated. That what you're displaying, this is a nicotine tank. Okay. It's a nicotine tank. It's made for nicotine. This is something that is for an advanced person that understands. This is a very complex thing. It's got 4 coils in it, and it needs more battery power, and it can burn the Allicin, okay? And it's for somebody who understands what they're doing. Let's say you're just a person, you're not, a lot of customers are 95 years old, or they're 80 years old. They don't understand all this high-tech stuff. So that is where very simple is in place, right? Simple is I can simply just charge this, right? I can charge it with a charger. You showed the charge port. It's a battery. I don't have to do anything fancy. I don't have all these power and temperature settings. And this cart, okay, and I recommend ABD or C-Cell or any product that certifies their carts where they've done lab testing and COA. There's no heavy metals in this, like all the cheap shit coming out of China and all of that. So this is what a half mil cart looks like. Okay, these things are sterile. It's just threaded on the bottom. It's just a battery. And it's very simple. And it's so simple that you can keep it in your pocket. You don't leave it in your car and let it overheat, right? But the practicality of this is at one time, things are changing. At one time during the pandemic, there's a convenience store or smoke shop on just about every corner in the United States. There were all these problems with PPE and masks and all these things going on. And I was like, the reason off the shelf wasn't just because this wasn't the only thing available. It just happened to be a lot of this available on every street corner. Yeah, that is the cap. That's the cap when you take it off. It screws on. It's just a very simple thing. Okay, it's very, you pour it in there. You take the bottle that you'll receive and you just pour it in there, and it's easy. And we have videos on this, product demonstration videos talking about all of this. Okay, but the important part is the physics. So this is physics, okay? That's all this is, physical chemistry. And the problem with Allicin products that are out there is that all these products had a physics problem, okay? And the physics problem was they could never get it on the surface of the lung in 1 millisecond. This product does that. But Allicin is loved inside the cell. The whole point is you don't want to get sick. You don't want to get sick. You don't want to even have a sinus infection. And that's why, I'm like, as we go forward with this, there's a lot of things in the works and bringing this to the masses. I come here and I talk to Michael Jacobs of the world because you have a great following. People respect you. They listen to you. They watch you. You have a great network with other people. 107, Nino, Scott McKay, Carrie, all these people. And I'm also a fan, not just somebody that comes here and talks to you. And I listen to have a respect for an eclectic mix of all they bring to you. And I learn a lot. Okay, I do. So I do this because I know what I experienced and I want to help other people, but I'm also fighting for Made in America. This is Made in America. I'm fighting for that. And I'm fighting through the political process because too many of our drugs and other things are made in China and India and other countries, and we don't make anything. And this is Made in America. It's real. And also want to help get the message to people. So I felt like Carlos had a lot of sinus infections too as a kid. Racing cars, I've seen him. I felt like with NASCAR and knowing these things, I could have helped these people avoid the infection altogether, because ivermectin and these other technologies are post-infection. You're now infected. The code is now inside of you. It's now replicating. And so that's the problem. With this, You're proactive. The probability of you getting infected, and we post probabilities of hitting targets based on research, sequence, 2D, and real structure of the proteins or the nano machines, what the probabilities are. We use analytical tools like AI, but we use real research, real 3D structures. We do real math related to it, and then we get impact probability of Allicin. So back to Karmadoc. We now have a lot of people that take ivermectin and fenbendazole. They take selenium.
Mhm.
The reason to eat selenium is there's a backdoor cheat code Easter egg in the codon table for protein translation of these little nanomachine components that the creator put in. Okay. And what absorbable selenium does, and they found in all the food in China during all this, and Dr. Ethan Taylor is the guy, it slows down the protein translation anytime one of these pathogens encroaches on your DNA operating system or a malfunction occurs like cancer. It slows down the making of the parts. It slows it down. So what happens is when you take a therapeutic like Allicin, ivermectin, and these other things, they're now more effective for you. Okay. So people with cancer, they have metabolic problems. The beauty of ivermectin and fenbendazole is they are slowing down metabolic access of energy in the form of glucose and other nutrients to these either malformed cells that are cancer cell programming, or these other pathogens, coronavirus or whatever virus they are, that are leeching off of your energy pathways to then evolve themselves in your body. So you cocktail things together. All right. And so with help with Karmadoc and other people like John O'Loughlin, who had stage 4 metastasized bone cancer, is now cleared by the Cleveland Clinic. And we have other people that have had this kind of success, third-party validation. I'm not involved with any of the diagnostic work, hands off. We got lots of stories of real people who have real medical records that can stand in a courtroom and say the truth. Well, during this period, and this is happening, what do we discover? We discover that in China, they were imaging people and injecting them with Allicin into some of their tumors, and other tumors Taxol. Taxol is also an anti-cancer drug. It's like $55,000 a bottle. Okay. And these people, and they found out in China, in clinical trials, they went into remission and destroyed the tumors. So then what happens is the Chinese, do you think that they bother to publish that in a Western journal and discuss it and share it with other countries in the Western world and the United States? No, they did not. Instead, what they did was they immediately went into the EU patent office. And I want you to see how this works and what's going on. They went into the EU patent office. All right. Now, once they went in the EU patent office, they file through what's called the PCT treaty with the United States and the United States Patent Office, foreign entity status, which means that they are first to, it's all about coming in first and getting your number and being first in line. When they got granted that treaty, enabled them to get the United States patent for injection. Okay. And the other papers that Karmadoc brought to me were tied to a bunch of publications from other people that were my colleagues from grad school that invented telomerase, that had already identified that garlic and molecules in garlic were doing things with a multitude of cancers. The Chinese then proved that with the injection, and also another one of these nanomachines called vascular endothelial growth factor, or VEGF, which is the protein that when you have a tumor in your body, it it causes the tumor to grow, and it causes angiogenesis, which is the growth of little capillaries that begin to form to feed the tumor glucose and other nutrients from your blood. As the tumor forms and builds itself, it needs to build the highways to get all those nutrients in there, because it's dividing really quick and it's robbing from you all your energy. This is why cancer patients, that when they're really old, they die, they're skinny, or young, they're real skinny, right? Because what has happened is all the sugar got taken up, and now you're taking all that muscle tissue, and you're like a diabetic with insulin resistant. You're taking all that and converting it to energy, and it's usually going into the tumors and not your body for regular function. So Karmadoc brought those papers. I saw them. Oh, it's all my friends. Now I pulled a 3D molecule, and I'm using AI and ChatGPT in 2023. ChatGPT and Microsoft turn off my access. Conveniently, right?
Wow.
But the beauty of it, and I want you to see with AI, the beauty of AI is, when I was in Nebraska using a $250,000 Silicon Graphics Iris Tower with 3D goggles and knobs, rotating one protein and looking at all the aspects, AI knows every single 3D structure in the protein database. It knows every bond angle. It knows every molecule. And I ask it I have a conversation with it, ask it an intellectual question related to a crystal structure and another, where the disulfide bonds. Then I go into the protein database. I pull that molecule, right? And I bring it up in a software to Insight 2 on Silicon Graphics Iris Tower. I use PyMol. PyMol is a 3D, it's like a CAD program, and I've got telomerase in there, and I've got, the platform from telomerase, and I can see the disulfide bridges, and I can insert an allicin molecule, and I can do physics calculus to tell me the aspect ratio between the size of the allicin and the target, which is basically like a dart hitting a bullseye, for simplistic terms. And allicin is that dart, and the bullseye are the two disulfide bridges and telomerase. And when that sucker breaks, it can no longer maintain the end of the chromosome in cancer cell programming. And when it can no longer maintain the end of the chromosome in cancer cell programming, the end of the chromosome degrades, then the genetic material in that chromosome in the cancer cell degrades, and the cancer cell programming self-destructs. Now, there's probably a million ways I could give you cancer, and there's a million ways you can get cancer, and there's probably a million more that humans don't even know. From everything from directed energy weapons to microwaves to arsenic to something that somebody concocted in the lab that my other colleague, Dr. Tisha DeLange, in 1994 published relative to SV40, papillomaviruses, and all these things that either cause your cell to die in 50 cell divisions, or now you got cancer. So I consider this all to be a blessing. Okay. I think that a lot of this, for me, what happened to me in 2019 at the beach, what my journey was through, a higher power sent me on this journey. Not me. A higher power sent me through this as test of my will and faith, which I never lost. Okay. And in 2023, after I dropped my daughter off in Pentagon City, you see the Pentagon from her apartment, I'm in between Jacksonville and Gainesville, and it's about 3:00 in the morning. And I now have a lot of endurance and strength back I'm detoxed, and there's other hormonal aspects of this related to your strength and manhood. Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Okay, I've got muscles. Anyway, I'm not tired. I'm driving 13 hours. So my point is, I'm very relaxed, and I had a download in my head. And this download, and I just want to show it real quick. I won't be, too long with these things, but it's very important to me because I don't know what put this in my head. This is 3:30 in the morning, and there's a lot more to all these things, but this is kind of important here to understand.
Mm-hmm.
We are a machine. The whole thing about Genesis and the plants, they're all DNA coded machines. Their DNA is a digital language. The designs are digital. And we're talking about simple things like molecular concentrations, but DNA is an operating system. And that operating system has machine learning in it. And it's not just the things that your teachers teach you. It's the environment teaching you. And so what this whole diagram was downloaded into my head, boom. And I knew about all these things from my education. But what the emphasis of what they were trying to show me was RNA algorithms exist that actually have to do with RNA transcription that I was taught all about, that we studied, and that there were 3 states. A normal state, which is what a typical medical doctor treats you to. This red state here, which is when you are sick, you don't feel good, you're in the red state. And if you run away into this red state over here in this area, that's near death, because death is right there. So the important thing that I learned in this download that came right into my head, which is this, and it came in just like this green part over here, this super mode. And this is a super soldier, super strength. It's just a distribution of machine states. And it was important that whatever was trying to communicate with me showed me this, because I had been up for 13 hours driving and I wasn't tired. I'm looking at all these truck drivers on the side of the road. And also I noticed that after detoxing, all of a sudden, and now I'm 57 and a half, I can lift weights and I'm not sore, or I can do things again and I have my life back. And so part of this is an antioxidant function tied to the SOD pathway and other things that you might be eating, antioxidants and diets that can help you from neuropathic conditions like diabetic neuropathy and other things. Okay. So there's a lot more that we don't know, that I don't know, that is tied to this stuff. Right. So,
But it's also, like you talked about, the Roman soldiers demand that they have, the garlic. They eat the garlic cloves before they went into battle. So they
took the words right out of my mouth.
No, okay, good.
So 27 BC, they're eating these cloves. They go into battle, right?
Yeah.
They have super stamina, but look, they're crazy. They're wearing full metal armor with swords, and they're cutting each other's guts open. The blood's flying everywhere. They don't have JDAMs and F-18s and F-35s and B-2s.
Nope.
There's nobody calling in a laser-guided bomb. They're eating this stuff. So, different era. It turns out this is millions of years old, and that story goes back to the Egyptians that built the pyramids and the little plaque outside they carved in the rock, and the fight that they had over the eating this for breakfast. The message, I don't know where the message came from. I assure you it was a full download, just that image. So I came home and drew that in Visio. So I would say I would like to see, in terms of there's no lying in science. We all found out what happens when you lie in science. That was COVID-19. And now with social media, where it's just the autism, the vaccines, every thing that's been pushed on us in terms of stuff that's being put in our food, sprayed in our air, it's all coming to light on what the heck is the reasoning for this. No, we need to take our tax dollars, and instead of doing crazy things, we need to figure out there's 400,000 plants on planet Earth. There's a lot of them behind you out there. Okay. We don't know some of these things. We don't know anything. They're on the landscape, but how many of them cure diseases? Or how many of them are also vaporized, not nicotine or cannabinoids or allicin? Maybe it's this product, which is grown in Japan, that creates, it is a Japanese cornus. It has ligonine in it, and it makes your insulin more productive. Okay. Professor got $2 million over here at USF to study the oral. I'm vaping it. I'm a guinea pig. My point is, we don't know. And we need to understand more, because the beauty of what went on in Genesis with the plants, and there is some stuff in Stone and Sumeria related to Anunnaki who did things with plants before they impregnated the female and made Adam, according to the stone, what is written in stone. We don't know enough, and we need to know more, and we should not repress the gifts that were given to us, because there's knowledge there, and the knowledge is information just as much as our own DNA code. And we don't know any better. And I have not had another cold. Okay, flu is a different thing, but I haven't had a respiratory cold since this whole debacle with COVID-19. Flus and hantavirus are different. You need a different strategy for those. You need the Allicin V, you need the selenium, but you need the Siberian chaga mushroom, which has the RDRP, which is the polymerase that reverse transcribes these things, that needs to be hit. That was a target for remdesivir. That was proven in Siberia by the Russians, of all people, to help with those proteins. Because I will show you, I have some fun little things to share here. I hope I'm not boring people with this. And I do want to take questions too, and give people an opportunity to ask questions if you would like to do that.
Yeah, if anyone wants to throw some questions in there, caps, all caps.
So these are the two proteins from hantavirus. And this is the GC protein. It's a spike. And this is the GN protein. And these yellow spheres, these are the disulfide bridges. And this is allicin as a molecule, to give you an idea how small it is. Okay? It's small. But these proteins are not complex. So what happens is, the functionality of the protein, when you hit one of these disulfide bridges, it stays somewhat functional, because it's got a different architecture to it, where the breaking of the disulfide bridge doesn't completely disable it. So what happens is, you go down to a 70 to 85% probability instead of a 90 to 85% probability. But these are also sugar coated, so they evade your immune system. And what this SASA calculation is telling you is that the accessibility of this in this pocket here is 155.53 angstrom squared. That's an area. It's a target. It's the bullseye. And the allicin is 61.5 angstrom. So that's the area of that molecule. It's like fitting a peg. It's like Tinker Toys. You know, you fit a wooden peg into a hole. Very similar. Same here with the GC protein. And this kind of protein here is a lot like the influenza proteins, but this gives you a visual idea of what you're looking at, right? Because if I showed you what I told you that spike protein is fragile, and I said to you, okay, well, look how easy it is to break Humpty Dumpty open in an egg, my little egg. This is a spike protein.
So
It's huge.
One
It's
question,
huge.
will it help chronic asthma? And I think you kind of answered that earlier, but go ahead.
Yeah, it helps chronic asthma because the I don't get asthma anymore. I don't have asthma anymore. I'm totally cured of it. Dr. Shepke thought I had the cure. Look how small that allicin molecule is. This is a big trimer, spike protein. Look at all those targets. Breaking that open is easy. It's, smashing an egg. And so when you have a lot of atoms like this, you're more vulnerable. When you only have a few atoms, like that other picture, you're not as vulnerable. So I don't have the asthma problem anymore. What I do have is I still have allergy problems tied to pollen. But where the eosinophiles are in the relationship to asthma, pulmonary hypertension, fibrosis, and all of these things that are in the pulmonary tract, COPD, and all these diseases, okay? Most of the diseases are caused by lifestyle and environment. You smoking cigarettes, you work in a factory where you're exposed to lead vapor, maybe you work on soldering things, or you work in a plant where the vapors affect your lungs, or you're exposed to smoke. Not lisinopril, which is my cough from high blood pressure from the diabetes, or maybe you're a painter and you're using the spray gun without the mask, or whatever the case is, right? You have the genetic disposition for the disease, but it's been running in your generations, right? Now, anything with negative energy, which is all the people that are worried about microwaves and generational energy frequencies and directed energy weapons, that's going to affect you. Negative energy and a disease is negative, and a negative compounds and makes it more negative. Imagine also having a pathogen. You have a pathogen. Now you've got negative energy on you with a pathogen, and you got COPD, or you've got bacteria or virus and COPD, and maybe you're not around the negative energy. These things work in cumulative effects. They summarize themselves, and they're synergistic. So in the case of coronavirus, with funguses go up to 54% lethality in the average person. You got lung disease like asthma or chronic colds, or sinus problems and respiratory infections like I had before. You saw what state I was in. This is why it's important to have these discussions amongst each other, to realize that what happened to Kyle Busch at age 41 is a young guy. He was in good health. Can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And we're watching too many athletes die on the field.
So that was interesting. You said also for COPD, because there's a lot of that would help that as well. That would make sense.
So we've got testimonials from people with COPD and whatnot that were smokers. Okay. Mm-hmm. You get remodeling and you get COPD, or maybe the COPD you have is related to another toxin. Maybe your parents had secondhand smoke and you grew up with them, and you were just exposed to it in the backseat of the car, or cigars, or whatever the situation is. Or you worked in an oil plant and you got all, work in a lab, toxic environment.
I had my parents smoked pretty heavily, and I was one of those backseat guys. I'd try and roll down the window. My dad, if it was cold, it's like, roll that window up. So I thought, I had childhood asthma, but I grew out of it. So I thought that, it was from secondhand smoke, but I believe it was from vaccination, because my cousin got it as well. Same time frame. He got vaccinated like I did in school. So they pushed vaccinations in school. So they'd have those guns that would, shoot it into your arm, air guns.
Oh, nice.
Not long after that is when I came down with asthma.
So let's say you got the asthma from the vaccine, and now you're having the respiratory problems.
Yeah.
That's negative. Now you got smoke with benzoylpyrene, which is the molecule that sticks in your DNA and gives you cancer.
Mm.
Okay. And it's on top of that. And now you probably had it worse than your cousin if your cousin wasn't exposed to that secondhand smoke. Fortunately, we didn't have maybe the cell phones back then, but you would have added that on top of the radio waves bouncing around maybe
Wow.
these days. And now you see how these effects are cumulative and can make things worse. Or your drinking water and your food is contaminated. And you stack that on top. Now you start stacking things on top. So where I am now at 57 and a half is I don't eat breakfast and I don't eat lunch. I have plenty of energy, but my pancreas doesn't work like it did. It did before, and I have to eat the same foods. Okay. I'm not losing weight. I'm maintaining weight. I have more energy than I need. My body doesn't need to process it. So if there's a famine, I'm blessed in that aspect because I don't have to eat very much.
So do you know Dr. Jessica Rose, immunologist and computational biologist?
I don't think I know her personally.
Okay.
I might have seen her work in passing, but certainly the field of immunology is quite detailed. And as far as immunoassays and immunology, I built these assays. You know, the important thing to understand is the difference between a medical doctor and somebody who's a PhD scientist. It's important to discussion. Medical doctors in their field, a typical medical doctor is diagnose and treat, right? And if they write a prescription for a test, that's going to a third party that's doing the clinical test. Okay. A PhD, it might focus in a very specific area, but they're designing those tests. So designing those tests for the clinical chemistry people to use that the doctors order. And so it's a more finite thing, but it's more in that area. So, you know, when UNMC is where we got the monoclonal antibodies for the stuff that I did. I've done all kind of monoclonal antibody work with 3D proteins to identify them, to do assays, to show the immunology. Okay, that's that kind of work. A lot of the mice and rabbits were up at University of Nebraska Medical Center, or that's where we got our monoclonal antibodies for the telomere binding proteins. That is who is designing. So we have ELISA tests, Western blot tests, fish assays, which are we get into all this chemoluminescent stuff where I have a microscope and I'm looking at a disease, and it's cool because I treat the slide with an antibody that then binds another antibody that fluoresces, and I can see these beautiful pictures. They're green fluorescence, and this whole area goes very deep and all these fun things with, you know, the different types of cells, cytokine, and all these different things, and it can get very complex. The point with Allicin is restoration of the immune system. So let me show you something very, very important very quickly.
And there was another question somebody was asking, excuse me, can Allicin be used in my updraft machine?
Updraft machine? Well, I don't know about that machine. A lot of people ask about nebulizers and other things. And so the one important thing about the device that you showed earlier is it's very low power, 1.5 to 3 volts, very low heating, because you don't want to burn the Allicin. So the reason I'm showing you this is related to immunology. And if you can see the arrow, what happens is Allicin opens up these pockets. Okay. It opens up the pocket. See that pocket that it carves out?
Yep.
That's a target called an epitope. Okay. Well, when you look at the aspect ratios and you're looking at the immune cells tied to the innate immune system that fails. The adaptive immune system, okay, see these antibodies? They can then poke it. It's called poking it. Okay, it's like reaching into a memory space. It's actually a binding, and there's a binding constant. But now these antibodies combine where they couldn't bind before because all of this is sugar coated and it's opened up. And then what happens is you restore the subsystem known as adaptive immunity. Well, these T cells then connect to beta cells, and the beta cells are holding all these antibodies, and they go around hitting all these spike proteins. And this is the learned immune system that goes on. Okay, this is how it works. This is an example of we have videos in our knowledge base. You can go out and learn about this. When these antibodies bind these viral pathogens, these other cells come along, and they're white blood cells, and they engulf them and eat them and recycle them like a garbage truck taking your garbage down a recycling plant. And that's kind of a simple diagram that I drew up for these doctors in South Africa that wanted to dig in, Sabham's group, that wanted to dig into how this worked in the immune system. And the point is, this is all code. Everything here is code. It doesn't look like it's code, but it's coded. And so the codes of the immune system are exploited. They're hacked. This hacks you. It hacks your code. So what we do is we hack this code. Okay, we hack this code in order to restore the adaptive immune system, which is a hack. It's a code hack.
Yep.
And then now you got learned that diagram where it said machine learning. Now you got machine learning in the RNA algorithm to make that antibody to protect you on demand. So that way I get a little sniffles, and maybe it's time for the sports season. Okay. Maybe you're an athlete and you're Mookie Betts, and the Dodgers are opening up in Japan, and you want to play the first game and you can't because you're sick, or you're Kyle Busch and you're racing a car. And so athletes put their body under duress and stress and G-forces, and these things they're negative energy, they're destructive, and they create a lot of exhaust in terms of molecules. You know all about the live wave peptides and the value out of that works with all these. These things are all cumulative. Antioxidants, your diet, environmentals. You're an athlete. You need these things when you go push your body to the limit, or you're SEAL Team 6 and you're going through Hell Week. This is why I feel that these technologies can help you, because now you're under stress, and now you get exposed on the battlefield to something sprayed out of a drone like this, but maybe worse.
Yep.
Or you're just some guy on a cruise ship trying to enjoy your life, and some exposure comes to God knows what, or you're in the jungles in Africa. So
now George Webb talked about pets being they bring in as well. So this person said, we can pick up vax influences just from contact with jet people. My naturopath detected rabies vax in me from my cat being jabbed. Wow.
Shedding. So the case of George, I got on to him about staying in these cheap hotels, which leads me to 107. So part of this
is like 6'8" and he likes bumping your head. He was bumping his head in your fan in your house. That's funny.
Yeah, he's 6'8", but he also got COVID from the bartender over at Cigar City, who was sneezing and wiping his glass while pouring his beer. So,
oh God.
So a lot of what happened to me while Nina was in gymnastics and these other things, or going to Disney and having fun with the passes and all that, I would go and stay in a hotel room And the next morning I wake up sick. All right. So I see people. I saw 107 in the UK get sick in London. He was sick in London. Then he went and met with my friend James in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Okay.
I remember that.
And he got exposed to some, and then they went to South Africa, and that's where all these doctors are and Sabums that I've interacted with. Okay. And they're tied to all of this. So I know about all this stuff. So he got sicker when they burned the trash. He got exposed to toxins on top of the biological. These are cumulative effects.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, tell him to take this and shield. I'll send it to him. And I'm going to tell James. Now, I also sent Allicin V to the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo last year. It's expensive. It's $60 to ship 2 bottles of this. I sent it to a reverend preacher who's in the government there, a friend of his, and it was given to him because those countries, America, we have a lot of access to a modern healthcare system. We have a lot of access to things that these other countries don't have. We're watching now what is going on with Ebola. Ebola is down on the chain. It's not as accurate, but outside of Ebola, okay, there's an outer membrane protein. It's spike protein. It looks different. The same thing with the ticks. What are we dealing with now? There's a tick outbreak.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Glad you're covering that. Good.
So the ticks, and this is kind of cool, the bacteria, what happens is the saliva from the tick is a culture medium for the bacteria. Okay. The toxic bacteria called a spirochete that grows in the saliva. Okay. Now the tick bites you and the bacteria get in your blood, right? Or they also have the ability to penetrate the wound or the skin, right? The outside is spike protein. On that spike protein, because I know Adam Finnegan, he's written The Sleeper Agent and Eric Traub and the history of all this and the Montana stuff that George has covered too. He just went out there. Rocky Mountain spotted tick, and all of this are bio programs that go back to Operation Paperclip and Plum Island, all the way back. On these little spike proteins are ornaments. They're like ornaments. It's called PAM3 cis-like. It's a lipid. It's a toxin. So you don't just have spike proteins on the spirochete. You've got spike proteins that are toxic with little more toxins hanging off of them that do things to your immune system, like affect your toll-like receptors that causes symptoms of either alpha-gal or Lyme. Okay.
Alpha-gal, that's the one where you can't eat red meat anymore.
Yes, and they do damage. Now, I'm going to tell you some cool things that a lot of people don't know with these ticks. So, when you have Allicin V in your blood, okay, the ticks don't like garlic at all. They don't like it at all. The outer membrane, I have a video of a 3D of the outer membrane, of the outer C membrane, showing you the 2 disulfide bridges. And there's work on this. The actual binding domain of the outer C membrane protein from Borrelia burgdorferi. I got the paper from Adam Finnegan. It has homology with the spike protein from COVID-19. They're related.
Wow.
Structurally related engineering is what it is. Okay.
Okay.
A knife is a knife. I heard you talking about knife work with Tracy. Apparently is very avid with the knives. In engineering, a knife is a knife. It's gonna cut you if it's small or large. These things are the same way. They're the same way. They're just really small. You can't see them with your eyeball. So the other cool thing that people don't realize, the ticks, they have an endocannabinoid system like the humans. So humans have endocannabinoids in their body Females have 2-arachidonol in their breast milk that causes babies to sleep when they nurse them. Anandamide is in chocolate, and these things are in our blood and they control our system. If you take CBD or THC, they're also in your blood. Well, guess what they do? They cause the tick to salivate. When it leaches into your blood, if they're in your blood, now the tick salivates and creates more of a culture medium, so more bacteria will grow. And the more bacteria grow, the more toxic exposure you have.
That's if you're doing THC.
No, it's chocolate is in anandamide. 2-arachidonol is in female breast milk. Endocannabinoids are in your body. Let's say you're taking CBD. Okay, I'm taking CBD for health and wellness. Now that is a cannabinoid. Or let's say I take THC as a recreational thing, or I take it as a medicinal thing because it's legal in these different states. Now what I'm doing is I'm out in the woods just having, look, I'm out in the woods behind you. I'm sitting out there walking around enjoying nature. And one of these ticks jumps on me. As soon as it bites me, all that's in my blood, it has access to it. Now it salivates, and now the bacteria that maybe only had a little bit to culture on that can be stopped conventionally has a lot of nutrients, and it can grow and bloom right there. And you can get these huge like blisters, they're dollar size. You see people. By the way, I will mention that I've learned some things lately. Dr. Berg is a really good person to listen to about nutritional stuff. He goes through a very good immunological. You'll see it on our X timeline. I put it there. A very good immunological D3 and K2 value add relative to blocking Lyme disease. He claims that he's been bitten a lot and that has helped him. He also cites Japanese knotweed and garlic. So I've told you some of the garlic stuff. The ticks don't like it. They'll stay away from you. You can destroy the spirochete bacteria with this. It's on the list that I showed you. I showed, on the timeline, I didn't show you the protein today, but it's on the timeline. Adam Finnegan has used our product. We do look into these areas, and there's a lot of concern now because there's a huge outbreak of some 450,000 cases, and it's peaking on the CDC chart relative to this tick problem. And I'm like, we ask, is this natural or is this man-made created? And these are attack vectors. So there's been a lot of news about Cuba and everything in Cuba and Brother in Arms. And I know people tied to the CIA that were related to Brother in Arms involvement when that went on. Well, it turns out that those Cessnas, they were flying those Cessnas real low into Cuba over the sugarcane farmers, and they were releasing the Lyme ticks on them while they were farming. And they got Lyme disease, and it spread over there. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of other things spreading over there now while things are out. But maybe we can stop that and go and help them. My comment about your friend 107 and all that other business was I've got so many stories of people go into a hotel room the next morning, they wake up sick. I've lived through that. If you're dealing with that and it's common and frequent to you and you travel a lot, that's how George got Legionnaire's disease. He was in UCLA hospital when I sent him a big bottle. I sent him several bottles of Allicin V in a carts. His kidneys were failing. He was under dialysis.
Wow.
And he was vaping the Allicin V in the hospital. Good news is he's here with us. He's well. Hopefully, this never happens to again. I wish it never happens to him. He's a good person. I appreciate. Listen, the one thing about the guy is he gets up and goes, he understands the sociological aspects of getting off your ass and going to these places and sitting down with the local people and talking to them. Actually, Peter Duke and him George was walking around with matches, and he would hand out matches to people in these restaurants and bars and talk to the people and go and do the work, everywhere. And that's why I appreciate it, because it takes a lot of time, and not all of us can do that. So I mentioned earlier, all the people that you interact with, I learn a lot from. The same with George, the same with other people like Jeffrey Prather, who's a friend of George, who had an experience with Fast and Furious guns and Barack Obama and Attorney General Holder, related to James Comey and Brennan and all of these people that need to be arrested. But that's another story. So we learn from each other, we communicate with each other, we protect each other, and these opportunities, we need to, while they may not be perfect, and not every case applies to every person, and nothing is perfect, and we're all human, we're all in this together, where we go when we go all. We battle against principalities and things that we don't understand. And so until we understand all those details, we're in this kind of boat together. We need to work together. We need to help each other, right? Because this is how our ancestors made it through. And we're seeing some things that we don't like. And, you have a tremendous amount of experience with dealing with things that are insane on the battlefield, or environments that are life and death and crazy. You're trained in that. The people in your audience, they're not trained in these kind of things. They're not trained in understanding that there are people that want to harm them. They want to harm their families and their children, and there's a motive behind it, and we don't fully understand it all. And there might also be a non-human presence. So with this little discussion here, we talked about this nanomachine is 55 million years old. It was created in birds. It's a complex engineering feat. Who engineered this? Who engineered this? Because I know that Wuhan was a dot release 55 million years later. Who engineered this? And that leads you into the discussion of who engineered all the stuff in Genesis. Who engineered these things? What about disclosure? What about technology? When are we going to be truthful with ourselves? And also understanding the greed of people who are insatiable for power, owning the real estate, owning everything. They want to own everything. They want to replace you with AI, robotics, and population control, and these things that we're observing. We don't. Okay. Yes, there's a lot of speculation. I ask a lot of questions. I don't always believe everything I see. I demand a little bit more analytical proof or other proof, but I am respectful. I don't go out just totally bashing people, saying you're crazy unless you've killed people. If you've killed people with a vaccine, I might say some bad things about you.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing as a psychopath that Zodiac murders and other killers, incarcerated people. John what's his name? Jeffrey Dahmer or Charles Manson, and these crazy people and all these crazy things, or Guyana tragedy and the Kool-Aid. So I keep an open mind. I'm a human just like everybody else. I'm making my contribution today by saying, look, I have a child. A lot of us are parents. We've been through a lot of things. We have family members and friends. I don't like what I see when I see people go through this. I don't like it. And so if I can help somebody and with this technology, I do my best. God willing, one day you might see me on here with Dr. Shin, and what do you know? I've got some heavy, high up brass sitting next to me, and we're having a discussion about a humanitarian effort.
Mm.
That's the kind of thing that we work towards with people. And, we got to keep working in that direction and keep working with, even realize that even people with 4 stars on their lapel, retired, they're as human as we are. They have things that are important to them in terms of humanity. They have families and children. So, we've got to work towards a goal. And in the case of America First, in the case of Made in America, in the case of, what the spirit of the flag stands for, and all these wars that you have fought in and that my relatives, it's Memorial Day weekend, and we're supposed to honor our veterans and everybody and all the things that people like yourself have done and the ones that we've lost. We also need to work to help ourselves and their families and everything, not just them, to get things in America, because we fought for all this. This is what we fought for. We fought for the right to have freedom. We fought for the right to truthful science, to right to try when you're terminally ill and there's no solution. All of these things, this is what we fought for. We fought for that. So I, on behalf of myself and the things that I do and the people that I work with to make these things happen, I recognize that it's important to give thanks to all those who have given their lives and dedicated their lives, and they're not here with us anymore, or they hurt themselves, or they got wounded. And it's Memorial Day weekend, and so we should recognize that. But
Definitely. Thank you.
I hope that's, there. So more questions? Any questions or anything you want to?
No, I think we're good now. So that was a nice show. I wanted to do the UFO stuff, but we'll have to get together and do that again. Another show.
Well, keep in mind, these are things that originated in non-human, way before the little carvings in the rock that told us about the Anunnaki, that, all those things. So that is a segue. Another day we can go into to other things, and hopefully by the time we get there, we'll have a lot more disclosure. I don't know where all of that is going.
Yeah. But yeah, the way they can move and stuff like that, the UFOs, go from air to water, go from air to through a mountain. That's interesting. So we should cover that next.
Sure. Anyway, if I could ever get into NASCAR and protect people at NASCAR, especially these people in Rolex 24 hours of driving, right? 24 hours of Sebring. These road races are crazy, and there's like 4 drivers, and there was like 4 drivers on the team. Brian Johnson was one of the cars at that Rolex 24 I was at. Endurance is a big deal.
Yeah.
And we collect a lot of data from these people. They have all kind of telemetry. Now they have so much telemetry on them. They actually have they're watching the heart rate of the driver.
Yeah.
Carlos has a ring, and they were watching his heart rate because during Sebring he had an
Wow.
these kind of things you can collect data from. And as we go forth with all these wearables, and do you do any of the wearables? You wear the band, or some people wear wearables on their chest?
No, I trying to keep that stuff off.
Okay. Well, some people do, not all, but what about the soldiers and stuff they have on soldiers now?
Yeah.
They're watching their heartbeats and some of the other biologicals on them. And anyway, that can get quite intrusive. But my point is, you can collect some good data and try to do good, positive things, and not try to chip somebody and track them.
Right.
And
I think they ship, guys.
what are your plans for the holiday tomorrow?
Got to do the barbecue thing. So we'll. How about yourself?
After this, I'm gonna go pull some veins off some ribs. I'm gonna rub them, and then I'm gonna tuck them in some aluminum foil and put them in the fridge to nap. And tomorrow I'm gonna cook some ribs and asparagus and some shrimp.
Oh my God. Yeah.
If you were here, sometime you'll have to come back to visit Florida. And
I've seen your pictures of your barbecuing. Oh my God, you do it up, man.
Well, you worked in a restaurant growing up. Well, I remember all that story. So culinary, I like to joke around about the Nobel Rib Prize and being the ribbinator and all of this stuff, because I'm into it now. But I can't eat ribs. I don't eat them. I told you I eat the same thing every day, so I'm cheating on my diet tomorrow. But I'm gonna have asparagus. But shrimp isn't so bad. But the red meat, I as a result of everything that's going on with all these pathogens, I try not to eat a lot of red meat anymore because of the GI and all the other stuff that is going on.
So I got one question. Somebody's asking if the JCO 7 code is still good for
absolutely. So if you go out to www.allicinv.com, we have two stores. We have a regular professional store that's a shop site store. You can enter the JCO 7 code in. If you go to eBay and you message us, send us a message and we'll get it and we'll ship it out to you. We'll send you 1 mil of Allicin V. If you buy Allicin M, we'll send you one mil of Allicin M, but we'll add 1 mil to your order and ship it out to you. And
bonus. Very nice.
We try to do that for your customers or your audience.
Yep, they appreciate it. Thank you.
And give them an extended experience. And by the way, 1 mil of this is a half mil cart. So we're projecting that 1 mil lasts 30 to 45 days. Okay. That's like $100 bottle of antibiotics. But if you use it 3 to 4 times a day,
it's actually good for you.
Yeah. You use it 3 or 4 times a day and you shield and you don't get sick. You're not sick at all. You don't need antibiotics. You're not sick at all. That's the point of using shielding technology, is you don't want to get sick. You want to save that for, let's say you are really, really sick. Now you need it. Or you're really, really sick. Now you need the ivermectin and fenbendazole. And if you couple that with diet and selenium, then you put yourself in a better position. Or you add other supplements, and I have a whole bunch of supplements that I take, and I'm sure you take, and the X-Wave patches, right?
Yep.
Position yourself to win so that you can enjoy every day. And with some of these things that we'd like to do with companies where people to have sick days, right?
Yeah.
We like to tell these people, get it in your company. That way, when people, they want a day off, they get to take a well day. they're not getting sick anymore. They just take the day off. It's a well day. They get to enjoy their time instead of a sick day. And then the thing we're looking for, and we want to work with people in these companies, is we want to look for operational improvements in their company where the people are getting sick and they're not coming to work sick and not spreading it amongst each other, and they're healthier and they have more energy and their operational output is better as a human. So I try to convince Don Mann of Mann Corporation. And this goes for anybody that's CEO, but any human being wants to take a well day instead of a sick day. So
should do it. So
that's the kind of stuff we focus on.
The vape pens are sold separately because of the laws and everything. So you have to buy your vape pen and everything. We talked about that earlier, so maybe you missed it. Somebody's asking that question. So,
I can't sell this technology. I can't sell it because in order to sell this technology, I would have to take your ID, okay? And I would have to follow all the FDA rules to get this to you. So as an adult in the United States, you can buy these pens and this, and you're going to get carded as an adult. Now, we have adults that are parents that give this to their 6-year-olds. They give us feedback that tells us that their 6-year-olds are running circles around the other kids with masks in their face, and they're not getting sick anymore. And we've even got grandmothers with 18-month-old babies in Oregon who tell us our little grandbaby who is going to have ear surgery doesn't have anything, and the doctor's shocked now, and it's not getting tubes or anything. Wow. So we collect the data that way, and we honor people's HIPAA rights. We don't reveal all that information in every email. We say, look, these are the customers, the ones that came and gave are bold enough. A lot of people, they're shy. They're not extroverts. They don't come on social media like yourself or me. They're scared to give the testimonials because they feel like they're going to be targeted or harassed, or their doctor or something's going to happen to them. Other people are very bold, and they're not afraid to tell you, I've used the technology, it's real, and they give you a video testimonial. And so those kind of things are valuable to us, because not so much now, and I hope it doesn't ever happen again, but during COVID-19, when they banned people's channels like yours, when law enforcement did things to people that was unethical, when the governments took people's accounts and didn't let them communicate and remove their freedom of communication rights, First Amendment rights away, that kind of stuff, it was totalitarian, just out of control, Orwellian, 1984 stuff. So we need people who want to tell their experience and the truth. Okay. People that have real stories, not made up. We don't make our stuff up. We put the testimonials out there of real people with real stories that have more behind it even. Okay. Because God forbid we ever got into a fight with a control system of the government that is being lobbied by a multi-billion-dollar corporation in a federal courtroom. Now we're in front of a jury of our peers. We've leveled the playing field. We want to bring people in that have medical records behind a real testimonial that can say, this is the truth. This is the truth of my experience, and have the medical records to explain it. Okay. Because there's been too much tampering with data and VAERS and all this other stuff and all the lies. And in order for a small little business like mine which we'd like to get grants and study with bigger organization. There's plenty of NIH money out there. But in order for a small company to bring forward technology, the hurdles are huge. They're absolutely huge for it's not just my company, but all of these companies that have products of all different types for all different things. And so we need to make those things available to us, collect the data transparently, and then work on sharing that data with people. Let people make choices. Let them have the truth and make choices. If they don't want to take vaccines, let them have the alternative. Let them have it accessed. Let's bring the data out. Let's see the truth. Let's not one trick pony this because it's not logical. It doesn't even make sense. And let's not cut people off for talking. Okay. Maybe something they said you don't agree with. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm human. I make mistakes just like everybody else. Let's collect the data. Right, wrong, indifferent. Let the data be the judge, not an emotional person or a dollar bill, fiat currency, or somebody's political position, or any of that junk.
Yep. Amazing. So thanks so much, Dr. John Scott Perez. It's been a great show, great information, great in-depth, how you came to this. Like, it's a gift from God to us through you. But you had to go through some turmoil, I guess, to learn it. So
hopefully I look a lot better at 57 and a half than I did back there. Okay. In 2006 when I was 39.
I didn't know you're that old. I thought you were like a young guy. So when we visited you, I thought, this guy's in his 40s or maybe even younger. So it's pretty amazing.
Let me tell you what, I felt like in 2003, after that first prednisone dose, I was over in Los Angeles with my wife and daughter, and we were visiting some friends over there. I felt like I was 68 years old. Arthritic. I had pain that bad. Okay. It was just, I went out there and every morning was like, I feel like an old man. And I'm like, with that kind of pain at 36 and it wasn't a good experience. So, I feel blessed that I was led through this. I am thankful and grateful to be here. I am grateful to not be getting sick anymore. And as an American, with many of the things that I have dealt with, that we have all dealt with whatever forces are working against us, if I can at least make my contribution and help other people, then I feel like it's worth me doing this. It's worth me adding this to what has gone on. And like I said, I don't want other people to go through this experience. This Kyle Busch thing is, it's upsetting to me because we lost another human being that was a great contributor to the human race in a different way. And I don't want to see it happen anymore, man. You get tired of it.
Definitely. All right, brother. Thanks a lot.
Peace out and have a wonderful Memorial Day. And thanks for all your service and contribution to your country.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Tuned in, and I hope you got a lot out of it. I know you did. God, if you're still here. So that's a great show. Thanks a lot.